Can I just say,
Mm.
you look really lovely in shalwar kameez.
Thank you.
Is this your first time wearing them? Did you actually go out yourself to get these, or did somebody?
No. We well, yes and no. So I bought a couple of them. I bought some in Islamabad, and at one point there was a tailor that came to the consulate. We don't do a lot of walking around in Peshawar, unfortunately. The security situation still is a little bit complicated for us, and so oftentimes we'll come out for meetings and events, but less so for restaurant visits or things like that. So, but in Islamabad, I was able to do it. I wear them all the time, just not outside, because I don't always know how people will react to seeing me in a shalwar kameez. If they think I'm trying too hard, or they think I'm pretending to be Pashtun, but they're extremely comfortable.
No, but it's a funny thing. I was actually laughing with Sir Zishan. He works with you at the consulate. I told him the same thing. I was like, if you make any American wear shalwar kameez and just let them out in the street, nobody's going to know that they're American. All of you look like Pathans, if or Chitralis or Pathans. You guys look like, we share a lot of similar features with the people up north. So I told him the same thing. I was like, if they have security issues, just make them wear shalwar kameez and go out in the street. Nobody's going to know. It's fine. But this is what I'm trying to say. Like, people are often like, oh, stand out or something like that. But it's always so disappointing when, you guys come to places like this, but because of security reasons, you can't go out and experience these things firsthand. Because I would have really loved to take you out on a tour of Peshawar, go to Kisa Khwani side, make you try those tikkas in the restaurant. Coming to food, I think this could be a good segue. You're Mexican American, right? I've never had the chance to try like authentic Mexican food. I've tried some in Islamabad, but I know that when there's a food place that is not exactly or not made by the people of its origin, so it's not exactly authentic. But I always love Mexican food because I feel like I can draw a lot of similarities between Pakistani food and Mexican food in terms of the spices that we use and whatnot. So what has your experience been like over here in Pakistan with Mexican food and then obviously with Pakistani food?
Yeah, I have this general rule. I mean, I've traveled a lot, right? 23, going on 24 years in the Foreign Service Department of State. So I've tried Mexican food in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And I have just this general proportional rule of taste where the further you go from Mexico, the lower your expectations should be, because it's hard to get the right ingredients. It's hard to get people who understand how those ingredients work.
Exactly.
And so a lot of times people call things Mexican that really aren't. I don't get offended.
Yeah.
It's
an honest attempt.
It's an honest attempt, and sometimes it's delicious. I mean, there's Tex-Mex food, which is wonderful, and it's delicious, but it isn't Mexican food. It's a whole other category of food that I enjoy all the time. But I mean, something as simple as nachos.
Yeah.
We don't make nachos in Mexico. I mean, we actually do now, but we imported them from the U.S.
You imported a Mexican dish from the U.S.
My family, when I visit them, they're like, "Oh, you should go get some nachos." I'm like, "Nachos?" Whenever I visited as a child, we never ate that. So each place reinterprets food based on
their local tastes, I guess.
Based on local tastes and local ingredients.
Yeah.
And so I try to take the food whenever I do try Mexican pasta, which I don't know what that is. Whatever it is, it's not Mexican, but try to take it on its own. How does this dish taste on its own?
On its own,
without really trying to compare it to Mexican food, because Mexican food, there are a lot of similarities, by the way. Mexican food has sort of 3 driving flavors, and I think 2 of those are very present in Pakistani food, particularly in KP. Mexican food is about smoke, it's about spice, and it's about citrus. Lime, lemon. And so I don't see as much lime or lemon here, but I definitely see smoke.
Yes.
And I definitely see spice. And so there's certain elements that you're going to run into a lot of familiar flavors and a lot of familiar processes, because I think both cuisines develop in fairly rural, family-driven environments where if you were going to kill an animal, it was something special and you were going to bring as many people together as possible.
Exactly.
And so you have to come up with a clever way of processing the entire animal and cooking the entire animal and serving 100 people all at once.
That feeds everybody, exactly.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of similarities, particularly in the way that you prepare goat here, also in the way that you prepare barbecue here. There are some dishes that are completely new that we don't have in Mexico. And then in Mexico, we do eat lots of pork.
Yeah,
so there's some dishes that are missing here as far as your typical Mexican food offering. But tons of similarities, I think probably because of the settings. The settings are actually, at least the part of Mexico that my family was from, very similar, very farm oriented, very rural. And oftentimes, you could be isolated for weeks at a time. And so you have to be fairly self-sufficient in terms of the tools that you could use.
If you could import one dish from Pakistan to Mexico, what would it be?
I'm going to say something you're going to say, but that's not really from Pakistan. But I love samosas. I really do. And I love samosas. There's a restaurant near the consulate that delivers samosas, and I really love those. If it were to be a more truly sort of KP dish, gosh, I mean, chicken biryani, I think is really delicious.
Chicken biryani is
it's got all of these kind of layers of flavor, and then you get to the meat, and then if you're lucky, they put a little bit of the juice on there. That's a very delicious dish, and we don't really do a lot of sweet, savory
rice
in Mexican or even Tex-Mex food.
Yeah,
that's not really a common, and yet that does happen in certain dishes in KP. So I think that's probably samosas first, but don't get mad at me.
No, it's completely understandable. Samosas are such a delicacy. Everybody, even in Ramzan, when there's Ramzan and we're doing our iftari, samosas have to be on the table. Any iftari without samosas is incomplete. And then pakoras, and then obviously whatever else comes afterwards. But samosas obviously is a delicacy. It's a food of the subcontinent.
Yeah.
You know, both India and Pakistan have it, and everybody has their own version of it. There's chicken samosas, aloo samosas, it's keema samosas. So you can name it and you'll find a million others. Yeah. What's something that you want us Pakistanis to try that's authentically Mexican that you think we'd like in KPU?
I think, and this is very popular in the US as well. One of the things that I really love about the US is that, you know, the US has been fairly expansive in terms of what constitutes US cuisine.
Yeah.
And all these immigrant groups have come and have reinterpreted dishes from their homelands. And then they've just been absorbed into the culture in the US. And so today taco trucks are everywhere. I mean, you can find taco trucks, really decent taco trucks in Cleveland, Ohio. And there's certain things that have started really taking root that I think are quite encouraging. And so I would say there's two things that you can absolutely cook in Pakistan. You don't need to import anything special, but one is a fresh tortilla.
Tortilla, okay.
Because the tortillas that I've seen here are either imported, the corn is not prepared exactly quite right, or they're flour. And a fresh corn tortilla is phenomenal. We make them at the consulate all the time, but it took a little while to teach them. And then the other one is queso fresco, which is fresh cheese. That's also really popular both in the U.S. and in Mexico. And paneer comes close.
Okay.
But it isn't quite the same. I think maybe because their paneer is not salted enough. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I've yet to try it, so I cannot draw up a comparison. But yes, we do try. We have paneer over here, and we make pakoras out of paneer as well. I think you must have tried some in this past Ramzan.
I did. It's usually a spinach dish with paneer.
Yeah, sag. It's in sag. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think, and if we were to talk about something more complicated, one of the wedding dish in Mexico that people really love, that again is also finding a following in the U.S. is mole. And mole is it's a very complicated sauce that you can serve on rice, on top of meat, can serve it on top of lots of other things. But it's a very complicated sauce that has anywhere from 30 to 100 spices. Its base is chocolate, but it's not sweet. It's not really sweet. It's meant to be sort of spicy and savory at the same time. People preserve mole for years, the same pot.
Oh, wow.
So you make a pot, and then next week you add more, and then you add more, and then you add more, and you're eating and adding to the same pot and continuing to develop the flavor. It's really delicious.
So I'm going to take notes of this, and I'm going to try all of these things when
you absolutely should.
Yeah.